Coming up on UGTV, Board of Commission meeting of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
Good evening. I'd like to now call the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming this evening. Thanks all who are watching at home. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call. Mugia.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Markley. Walters.
Here.
Philbrook.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Burrows.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Alvey.
Here. This evening our invocation will be given by Mr. Johnson.
May we bow our heads. Eternal God, our Lord and our Savior, we thank you for this evening. We ask you that you would guide us tonight as we seek to lead this community. Give us your wisdom and your love, Lord. Show us, Lord, how we may be advocates for everyone in our community, no matter what the background is, no matter where what area they are from. We ask, God, that you would give us your wisdom. Watch over us, Lord, those that have been called into authority. Help us to be humble in how we legislate, oh God, so that, Lord, we look after those, Lord, that from the greatest to the small. We pray this in the matchless name of Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Clerk, are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
There are no revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Tonight we have two parts to our meeting. The planning and zoning portion will be handled first, followed by the regular commission meeting. I'll ask the clerk to read the statement required by state law governing the planning and zoning portion of our meeting, followed by the items on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor David Alvey, Commissioner Melissa Bynum, at-large District 1, Commissioner Tom Burrows, at-large District 2, Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, Commissioner Ann Mugia, District 3, Commissioner Harold Johnson Jr., District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6, is unable to be here, Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each petition is called this evening, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before this commission, the commission has three options. Number one, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. Number two, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. And number three, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration, together with a statement specifying the reasons for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the planning and zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote or recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or staff, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the mayor will ask if there are any requests to set aside items from the consent agenda. This is your time to stand up and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We will remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. Once the petitioner makes their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 3 minutes to state your views. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and city for the record. The mayor and commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the planning and zoning agenda. I will ask if any member of the commission wish to disclose any contact with any proponents or opponents on any items on the agenda.
So are there any disclosures to be made by commissioners? Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish to disclose I have had contact with proponents and opponents of SP-2019-16.
Thank you. Commissioner Philbrook.
I have had conversation about number 3183, change of zone application, and concerns about SP 2019-16.
Thank you. Commissioner McKiernan.
I've had contact with opponents of A4, 3183, and D1.
Thank you. Commissioner Bynum.
Conversation with taxpayers on 3183 change of zone.
Commissioner Kane.
Proponents of change of position number 3183.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Murguia.
Yes, I've had contacts with opponents for D1, the ordinance amendment.
Thank you. Commissioner Walters.
Had conversations with opponents of ordinance D1.
Thank you. Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you. I've had contact with proponents of D1.
And I have had contact with proponents and opponents of D1.
I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Changes on applications, item 13178, Tim McGill. Change of zone from AG Agricultural District to R1 Single Family District for a second home at 973 Leavenworth Road, recommended for approval. Item 2, 3180, Jeffrey J. Gardner. Change of zone R1 Single Family District to AG Agriculture District for an additional accessory structure at 3640 North 83rd Street, recommended for approval. Item 3, 3182, Jason T. Hussey. Change of zone from R1 Single Family District to AG Agriculture District to allow production and sale of agricultural products on site at 732 North 57th Street, recommended for approval. Item 4, 3183, Michael Slitt. Change of zone from RP1 Planned Single Family District to R1 Single Family District for continuation of a residential development at 4401 North 115th Street, recommended for approval. Special use permit applications, item 1, SP 2019-13, Jason Myers with Coach Automotive Restylers, LLC. Renewal of special use permit for a car dealer license at 3030 South 24th Street, Suite B, recommended for approval for 5 years. Item 2, SP 2019-14, Ryan Cash with Witches Brew, LLC. Renewal of special use permit for a drinking establishment at 222 North 6th Street, recommended for approval for 10 years. Item 3, SP 2019-15, Jeff Stahney with Joe's KC Barbecue. Renewal of special use permit for a parking lot for the restaurant at 4620 Mission Road, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 4, SP 2019-16, Jeffrey Hollenshed, special use permit for live entertainment in conjunction with coffee shop at 2005 North 5th Street, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 5, SP 2019-18, James P. Donovan with the Showroom Floor LLC. Special use permit for a short-term rental Airbnb at 1127 Southwest Boulevard, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 6, SP 2019-20, Ryan Dink with McEnany and Van Cleve and Phillips, PA, renewal of a special use permit for dirt removal at 1625 South 86th Street, recommended for approval for 5 years. Item 7, SP 2019-21, Daniel Castillo with Mockingbird Lounge, renewal expansion of a special use permit for a drinking establishment with live entertainment at 204 Orchard Street, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 8, SP 2019, Julie L. Ramirez, renewal of a special use permit for the temporary use of land for a storage container at 32 North 74th Street, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 9, SP 2019-23, Regina E. Compano, renewal of a special use permit for the temporary use of land for a U-Pick Berry Small Vegetable Farm CSA pickup produce stand and small classes at 4141 Joyce Drive, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 10, SP 2019-25, Taryn Glidwell, renewal of a home occupation special use permit for a short-term rental Airbnb at 2914 West 44th Avenue, recommended for approval for 2 years. Plan review application, we have one item, PR 2019-4, Majid Amira Madid, preliminary plan review for a grocery store at 501 Minnesota Avenue, recommended for approval. Ordinance amendment, we have item number 1 is the consideration of amending requiring a special use permit for small box variety stores. It's consideration of certain amendments to section 27-340, Planning and Development of Kansas City, Kansas Code of Ordinances, generally concerning definitions, and a new provision to section 27593-A, Planning and Development of Kansas City, Kansas Code of Ordinances, requiring a special use permit for small box variety stores, recommended for approval. Miscellaneous ordinance, item number 1 is an ordinance rezoning property at 1301 North 98th for planned general business district, recommended for approval. Item 2 is an ordinance rezoning property at 2205 West 36th Avenue for a planned apartment district to CPO planned non-retail business district, recommended for approval. Item number 3 is an ordinance rezoning property at 800 to 830 Washington Boulevard, 1304 to 1312 North 8th Street, 813 to 851 Everett Avenue, and 1315 North 9th Street from C1 Limited Business to RP5 planned apartment districts to RP5 planned apartment districts, recommended for approval. Those are all items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on the planning and zoning consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the planning and zoning consent agenda will be voted on by one vote to follow the recommendation of the planning commission. If you'd like to, please come forward, state your name and your address.
Pete Peterson, 748 Ann, Kansas City, Kansas. Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, I would ask that letter D1, consideration of the amendment concerning small box variety store ordinance be pulled, set aside.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane.
I'd like to pull change of zone petition 3183, please.
Thank you, 3183. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mayor and Commission, my name is Dorothy Reed. I reside at 420 Walker Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas. I'd like the SP 2019-16 be set aside.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Willie Gaunt, same set aside.
Okay, thank you.
Chester Owens, I'd like SP 219-16 be set aside. I'd like to comment.
Thank you. I think you said 2019-16. Is that correct, Mr. Owens? Was that 2019 regarding the small box variety stores? No, I'm sorry. I think we misunderstood. Same one. Same one? Okay. Yes, thank you. All right, I will entertain a motion for approval of the planning and zoning.
Second.
Wow, motion and a second, that's a record. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Murguia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
So that takes us to set aside items A4, change of zone number 3183. I'd ask staff to make some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a rezoning request to go from RP1 to R1 for a large lot subdivision containing 5-acre lots. As you know, the Planning Commission approves the plat itself, so that the preliminary plat has been approved, but this is the zoning that would allow that to happen. It comes before you unanimously from the Planning Commission, but we're aware of some issues remaining with the neighborhood.
Thank you. I'd ask the applicant to come forward to present his application, and we'd ask that you please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Matt Slish, Engineering Solutions, 50 Southeast 30th Street, Lee Summit, Missouri. So if we're just talking about the rezoning portion of this is just the remaining ground of what was the Northridge Estates preliminary plat that had been brought forward to the city some time ago, and I think the preliminary plat, because no action was taken on the preliminary plat, had become void. So the developer went through some iterations looking at continuing it with a small lot subdivision similar to what Northridge Estates looks like today, and what they decided to do is came back and rezoned it to a R1 to allow for some larger lots. So we've primarily put in there 25 lots, and I think at the Planning Commission, we've actually reduced it by 1 lot to add on the west side, or 115th Street side, we had 2 3-acre lots that we've been asked to remove those and make them all 5 acres. And then on the east side, we had one point where they're asking to have an access point. So I think it's actually 24 lots, with 23 of them being 5 acres and larger, and then 1 lot being about a half-acre size that abuts directly to the existing Northridge subdivision.
Thank you. So if you'd like to take a seat just in the front row in case there are questions.
Absolutely.
So I now open the public hearing. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this item? If so, please step to the podium. At this time, we'll give you 3 minutes. Seeing none, is there anyone present in opposition who would like to speak on this item? If so, now is your time. Come to the podium and state your name, your address, and give us your comments.
Hi, Dana Bai, 10708 Augusta Drive. I'm here on behalf of the Homeowners Association, Northridge of Piper Estates. We were here for the Planning Commission meeting, and part of the recommendations included that this subdivision was not going to include the name Northridge. And promptly after that meeting, the developer's attorney sent us a letter that said they basically have no intention of not using the name. So we want to know if that's something that the city is going to continue to support, or if we are going to have to engage legal counsel again to fight the developer.
The stipulation of the zoning, Mr. Slett at the Planning Commission meeting said they would change the name, and that's the stipulation that's been included. And they've agreed to that. So when the final plat is recorded, it won't have the name Northridge as part of the plat.
Okay.
And I understand that. I think that saying that, he's saying that that's not going to happen. And every time this is on an agenda, if you Google it, it's coming up, and it's coming up in association with us. And the application says continuation of a residential development. It is not a continuation of our neighborhood. So every time this comes up, the final plat might not say Northridge, but all of this other stuff is. And if he's still planning on marketing it as that, If he's going to put a monument up that says that, we're going to have an issue.
The next agenda that it's on for the final plat approval will not have the Northridge associated with it. And, you know, they won't put up a Northridge, they can't put up a Northridge monument. They'll have to put up a monument with their name on it, and what, you know, they'll have a easement in one of the yards for them to do that, so, or two of the yards maybe.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition, please state your name and address.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Bill Hurlbrink. I just moved in on Saturday to 4316 North 112th Street. I'm sure you can't recall it from your packet right away, but it's lot number 68 on the Northridge plat, which butts right up to the lot that the engineer mentioned that is the half-acre lot. My primary concern with this is moving forward, this development was pitched as a 3 to 5 acre estate lot development, you know, where you put a nice big house and you have your big estate lot to sit on. And that's great. I'm all about that, and I think that's great for the community. My concern is that it just seems like this half-acre lot is just shoehorned in, and it just so happens to be behind my house and 3 of my neighbors' house. I just don't think that it fits in with the character in which the development was presented. I don't think it fits into the development period. I think it would be best used, as I stated during the Planning and Zoning Commission, or Planning and Zoning meeting, to be just resolved or absolved into one of the other plots. Also, another concern that we had, and just had minor discussions with a couple of real estate agents around, was that our understanding was this development was going to be all on septic. And my understanding is that anything under an acre can't be on septic, that it has to be tied into the sewer lines. So we just wanted to make sure that was going to, if this does go forward as plotted, that was followed. And yeah, that's just our main concern. I just don't think that this lot, it's lot 25 on the development map. It looks like a piece of pizza. It's just like squeezed right in there, just right up to next to my house and 3 of my neighbors' houses, and it just doesn't look like it fits the rest of the development. And I just want to make sure that we're not setting precedent now by saying it's okay to do it now. So while we develop the rest of the western part of our city, that it's okay to do it then too. So let's just not set additional precedents now that we can try to avoid in the future. Thank you.
Good evening. Matt Watkins, 4023 North 111th Street. I'm a new resident of Clearview at Piper Estates, which is a first generation, second generation of Piper Estates. We in Clearview have lot sizes that are anywhere from about 1/3 of an acre up to 1.5 acres. We join in with the original Piper Estates neighborhood that has 3 to 5 acre lots that have any number of stipulations on them for building, from construction materials to facade materials to the way the driveway enters into the house, so you have side-facing driveways. I would be in favor of this proposal if we could initiate or have some confirmation that the covenants and restrictions for this neighborhood would be similar to the character of the surrounding neighborhoods which it joins into, which include tying into the sewer system for the ones that are available to tie into. So there are 5 lots that join into the existing Northridge neighborhood that could tie into the sewer system. I think that would be, it would behoove us not to require them to tie into the sewer system, because that's allowing them to get away with not contributing to the infrastructure that's there for all of us to take advantage of, but yet they don't have to. I think that's an important thing. It helps defray the costs for the rest of us as well, because the sewer system's already there. They should tie into it. Number 2, the covenants and restrictions would have driveway construction material. I'd hate to see down 115th Street that we have a bunch of gravel driveways. That would be, I think that'd be disappointing. I worked about 5 years ago.
1 minute, sir.
Thank you. I worked by the right-of-way for 115th Street. That project was a $4 million project, that we worried about streetscape, we worried about grading, we worried about other things that I think would be detrimentally harmed to the surrounding neighborhoods if we don't think about retaining walls, driveway grading. Several of these lots, I would say over half of them are going to require hundreds of thousands of dollars in retaining walls. And if we let them put gravel driveways on there, what are we really doing in that sense? I'm also concerned that now that it's, large acre lot, they could, if they want to put their house 400 feet back, who's to say that they go to BPU and say, hey, I need 4 power poles that are going to get planted on my property when all the rest of us have to have underground power all the way back to our house? I think that's an important thing. So I would be in favor if we could stipulate to several of these things, tying into the sewer for 5 of those folks, square footage requirements for the pipe that's similar to Piper and Clearview Estates, driveway construction, retaining wall construction, and grading requirements that are similar to what we had to do in Clearview Estates, as well as power. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Since there are no further comments or questions from the public, I'll close the public hearing. Would the petitioner like to make any closing comments?
So I guess I'll just start at the last. So I think to the last person's comments, I think we've stated the CC&Rs that we presented will be similar to what the adjacent areas are. I don't know exactly what Clearviews are. We've looked at North Ridge Estates, and I think we're similar in size and character and style to that one. So I think we're in that range. With the 5 lots on sanitary sewer, the half-acre lot or the smaller lots at lot 25 will connect to the sewer system, but all the rest will be septic as allowed by state regulations, as that would be allowed. The gravel driveways, I may defer to Rob on that, but I believe that's a requirement of R1 that anyone would have to have a concrete driveway on that side of it as your city ordinance. So I think we're fine with that. I don't think there's anything outside of it. I'm not sure what the grading and retaining wall side of it is. I mean, these people are going to be building relatively nice houses in there that are going to require whatever it is to make it worthwhile. And then the power underground, I'm not 100% certain how that gets handled with BPU. It's going to be, I think, up to them of wherever that power goes.
We actually have an ordinance that requires any plat done after 1973 to have underground power.
Yeah. So we're fine. Like I said, we'd follow the rules. With Mr. Hillebrink's side of it, I think we talked about that lot 25 that kind of goes on the west side of what is Northridge Estates, and we talked about that. Rob had made some good comments that maybe we'll go in and kind of square that up and make it not such a long rectangular pie-shaped lot. In our opinion, what we stated at that meeting was just the idea that kind of it was just a transition between had half-acre lots or less that are in Northridge Estates. It made sense before we got to our large 5-acre lots, we'd have that one that would sit in there that would kind of be the transition. That's kind of what we asked that to be corrected. And it will connect to sanitary sewer, so we're fine with that. And then Dana and I have spoken many times about that name, and it is part of the stipulated comment from Planning Commission, and we were sticking with that. I do understand that she did receive a letter from the developer's attorney stating that they believe that that's more of a legal discussion and outside the city's purview as far as what the naming of the subdivision is, and I still stand by we'll figure out something that makes sense. I think the attorney was just writing the letter that Northridge has trademarked the name, and I think we're just trying to get an understanding of exactly what that means, and we'll continue to work through that. But I do agree with Rob that that's a stipulation of the Planning Commission recommendation, and we'll stay with that we're fine with that side of it.
So you're stating the developer will not pursue the name Northridge?
I think, yeah, I think the conversation is...
That's yes or no, really?
I cannot speak for the developer to say he will not pursue. We understand that that is a statement that you guys have put that as a stipulation. His attorney has responded saying that they don't believe they can trademark it. I'm telling you that we'll continue to work for a name that works with everybody. When we come for that final plat, we completely understand if I come back and present to you Northridge, we're going to have a problem. So I understand. I just can't tell you the developer absolutely will not come back with something that has Northridge in or some of that range.
Okay. Commission, Mr. Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. I hope all of you read the concerns in the back from, well, first of all, I got a letter saying I'm within 200 and some odd feet, so I need to ask legal if it's okay if I talk. It doesn't affect my property. I'm just within 200 feet of it.
Commissioner, you received a letter because statutorily within 200 feet you're possibly of interest in this action. Everyone within 200 feet receives such a letter. The Ethics Code prohibits you from voting if you're affected by the result, but affected is more than just, it has to be some direct effect and not something that's indirect or inconsequential. I don't think, I think the language that they actually use is, let's see. Well, so it has to be some kind of direct and not just a hypothetical effect. And in this case, or a secondary effect is where I was looking for. So in this case, like any effect you would have would be secondary, and therefore you would not be precluded or disqualified from acting.
If you read the letter that the HOA wrote, it talks about I cut the grass in the neighborhood. And I didn't cut the grass till he took the properties over because he wouldn't cut them. Well, one day I decided to call Higdon and say, hey, a constituent asked a question. I didn't know that he'd already talked to Miss Bai about it. He starts cussing me out like a dog, telling me he doesn't care about the community. He's there to build houses, and we weren't going to stop him. Well, what happened was Miss Di talked to Dana Di, whatever, talked to him, and he was pissed, right? Well, then when I call him and I ask him questions, and he starts yelling at me, and he did say, I don't care what you guys say because you can't make me do it. There were multiple places where the city had to go out and cut his grass. You know why I know that? Because it was a lot next door to mine. I cut that grass the entire time with the prior owners. He came in there, him and I got in an argument, so they dumped stuff on that lot so I could no longer cut the grass. Then we had to send the city out there to cut the grass. This guy is not willing to work with the association. You just heard this gentleman here representing him, we'll work it out. Well, we can work it out. It's not going to be named that. It'll be named something else. But this is the exact same process that Higdon has had all along, that I'm going to get up here, I'm going to tell you what I want, and you're going to live with it. And that's not the type of people we want in this community. The builders before, you know, they lost it, but they kept everything up. But when you assume responsibility, when you buy into an area and you only build another 30 or 40 homes and then you want to make money off that name, that's wrong. But it's also, that's why I think it's important that we narrow down what's going on behind Mr. Hurlbrink's house. That we narrow down, that we probably need to eliminate that whole little spot back there and give him the rest of what he wants, but so there won't be any further issues. And then we need to make sure that the name is whatever name it is other than ours. Because if you let this guy do this now, he's going to come back on another project and say, you let me do it before. And I don't think that's fair to the community. And that's why I think we need something in writing, Rob, that says we want to eliminate that particular spot there. We want to make sure that they can't use the name and they live up to all the other responsibilities that all the other home associations have to live up and around that area. And yeah, that's a motion.
Second.
So let's be clear what the motion was.
Send it back.
All right.
We're going to send it back.
Sorry. Motion to send it back so we get further clarifications and we ask them to withdraw that section behind Hurlbrink's house.
We have a motion and a second.
Can I ask a question before we vote on this, please?
Yes.
So I was noticing also when I was reading through here, because this ground is very rolling and there's a lot of course, trees and stuff going on this property, and there's some water pathway through there. And I noticed in here from the report for the Wyandotte County Conservation District that they made a special note that we would not recommend any action until we had a chance to review the erosion control plan. And so, you know, you guys have heard me talk about this stuff before. Why do we ask for reports if we don't pay attention to them? So I ask that we have that before we make any decisions as well.
Amendment to the motion.
Thank you.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, could I ask a clarification? So you want us to look at all the issues that the folks raised tonight, including what Mr. Kane, Commissioner Kane requested as well? I just want to make sure when I go back to the planning commission, I'm telling them correctly.
And Commissioner Philbrook, thank you.
But yes, say it.
You know, we want it documented, they can't take the name.
Okay.
You know, that we want it documented, that we want that part removed, and then he gets the rest of the stuff. And that, and add in there maybe perhaps better communication between all, because I've never not called this guy and not had an argument with him. And when somebody starts yelling at you on the phone and say, you guys at the city can't make me do something, and I'm like, the grass in my lot was taller than I am, or next door. And like I said, we had to have the city cut it because he put trash on it. In fact, they dumped, in the middle of winter, they dumped concrete with chemicals in it, which is what they do during the winter. And I called him up, and they were fine the next day because he said that he didn't care what I thought. And that's documented, and George Suter was the one that went out there and did that after, and Jeff Fuel was there as a witness. So he's already proved that he didn't care. They're dumping concrete with the chemicals, the wintertime chemicals, and he made it very clear to me there wasn't nothing I could do about it. Now, they were out there 2 days later picking it up, but you're dumping a chemical. How many kids in your area? We don't know what the chemical could do. It actually burns you. You know, we don't know what all it's going to do, and yet he says, I don't care. And you can add, George Suter was working for us at the time, Jeff Fuel, the neighbor, and watched him.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, entertain a roll call, please.
Roll call, Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That takes us to set aside item D1, consideration of amendments requiring a special use permit for small box variety stores.
We also have special use permit application B4,
I must have missed that one.
SP 2019-16 for Jeffrey Hollinchet.
Sorry, we'll go to B4. Thank you.
Good evening, sirs and ma'am.
Okay.
My name is Jeffrey Hollinshed, 1960 North Thompson. I'm here to, in favor of the live entertainment permit for my coffee shop at 2005 North 5th Street. The business, or actually the building, has been in my family since '49, and I've been taking over it, and on and off I've had different tenants, and then in one section of it I decided to open up a business myself, and my business ended up wanting to be a coffee shop, and then I named it after my grandfather with a jazz theme, John's Java and Jazz. I incorporated jazz to settle the coffee shop atmosphere. The coffee shop only has 18 seats, very intimate. I put my heart and soul in it. And it's a place where people in the local community can walk to, have good conversation, no fear of any crazy violence. And that's what I wanted to do for the community, sir.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this?
Good evening. My name is Chester Owens, 1150 Washington Boulevard. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Bach, Commissioners, I'm appearing here this evening speaking in favor of this business. I live in this area just a little over a mile from this establishment. And I have patronized it many times since it opened in December. The grandfather, who was the owner, who Mr. Hollinshed spoke of, was my barber when I had hair. And also was one of my heroes. And he influenced a number of people when we were growing up in this area. As Mr. Hollinshed stated, this building was purchased by the Dickens family in 1949, and they maintained some type of business there for years and years. I think it's commendable that Mr. Hollingshed has returned to this community after serving over 20 years in the military, and he lives in the area, which is the old family home. The establishment is not only provides good food, coffee, and other beverages, but provides a location where you can go meet old friends, have good conversation, listen to good music, and listen to the spoken word by local talent. The atmosphere of this establishment is great, and it makes you want to return for more. This is a positive asset for this area, and we need all of the positive assets that we can get in this area. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Wyatt, and I live right up the street from the Jazz. And actually, I lived there all my life because I grew up in the area. And it's good music. Mostly senior citizens go in there, you know, have somewhere to go in the evenings, listen to music, talk to friends. And I think that it's well worthy of the community because that's what you want to do. You want to bring your community back alive. Jeffrey also redid his house he lived in. It's really beautiful, big house, but he put a lot of time in that house, and it's really nice. And the same way for the business. It's really nice and it's comfortable. And so it's not loud, no loud music, nice, comfortable music. And I think that it's worth it for the community because it's a nice old building. I knew his grandfather. My mom, she died a couple years ago. She was 102. So we lived in the area. So it's just the business on 5th that everybody knows about the Dickens. And so I'm in favor of this business. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone present in opposition who would like to speak? All right, seeing none? Oh, I'm sorry, folks coming in opposition?
Yes, I'm Dorothy Reed. I reside at 420 Walker Avenue in Zion Estates Housing Addition, which is just a few blocks from this establishment. I also belong to the Strangers Rest Baptist Church located at 2052 North 5th Street. And I would like to express concerns because of what's going on in the establishment, especially on Sundays. Strangers Rest also has activities throughout the week and during the day, which we don't want there to be any disruption or conflict or disturbances coming from that facility that would interfere with our church activities. We want our neighborhood, our church, and everything to remain in good, safe family environment. And we don't want anything that might breed crime, negativity, or degradation. As another member of the church is going to express some of the concerns that we have about the establishment.
My name is Willie Garth. I live at 2220 North 36th Street in Kansas City, Kansas. I grew up in this neighborhood also, but as a concern, I want to express some of the church's concerns, which is alcohol will be served here, I do believe, if I understand that. Their concerns are how it will be served or distributed, and if minors will be present during this distribution and serving. Also, the concern of the activities, whether there will be outside activities, the hours of the operation, and then congregating outside, even after hours. These are some of the concerns. We have activities, as she stated, all during the week. And I've Tuesdays, our ministers' councils meet, and I noticed they didn't show that they were open on Tuesday, but we still have a lot of other activities going on all during the week. We are concerned that it, as Dorothy stated, it stays a family-friendly environment. And we do have plans ourselves to motivate certain community centers in that activity, in that area. So I just hope that the committee will take these concerns from the church in consideration in awarding this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present in opposition? All right, seeing none, I will now close the public hearing. Would the petitioner like to make any closing comments?
Yes, sir. I will iterate that it is a community coffee shop. I'm going far into it to be a community coffee shop because I've talked with Dr. Moser out at KCK CC Community College to get some of his older students that plays jazz. And then I talked with the Miss Cindy Lynn with the USD 500. She's got email traffic so that I can get the high school students and I can get a mentorship with jazz. And there will not be no alcohol served if there's minors inside. And only time I've had minors inside is in the evenings. They come in, they eat, but the liquor is not even displayed in the coffee shop. All the alcohol is down below in the Lazy Susan. I understand their concerns. I've tried to reach out and talk with Pastor Banks. It came to my attention that he had concerns. On a Thursday night, that Friday morning, I called, the phone rang, the lady, cafeteria lady called, answered, and I asked to speak to Pastor Banks, and she said, well, call back and get on his voicemail, press 201. I did that Friday morning. I didn't get any return calls. I know his business hours is on a weekend with Sunday. So I waited till Monday, did the same thing. I didn't hear anything from him. So I just said, well, maybe he understood or somebody had a talk with him. But my concerns, or their concerns, that I will address, I got my business hours are Thursday nights, 5 to 10, Friday nights, 5 to 10, Saturdays, 8 in the morning to 10 in the evening, Sundays, 8 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. The reason why my hours are that way, because my other 40 hours go to the UG during the week. So my intent was to try to see how I can give some type of way to the community and not, you know, work myself in the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any members of the commission have any questions or comments? Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Hollenshed, Ms. Reed. And Mr. Garth. We have two long-standing entities that we're talking about tonight. And just so it's clear, Mr. Hollenshed's entity is already existing and doing business during the hours and at the dates and times he's just stated. So it seems the issue here is whether or not there's going to be a real positive influence as he desires with the addition of this live music. And that's what, from what I'm hearing, is the concern expressed by members of the church. You said that if there are any minors present, you will not be serving alcohol.
No, ma'am.
Okay. What are the times, particularly on Sunday, that you anticipate having live music?
Well, I haven't even scheduled any because I don't even know if I could do it yet. I scheduled, I pulled 2 permits because to have live entertainment now, I have to pull a permit from business license. So every time I had live entertainment, I pulled a permit for $25 from business license to allow myself to do that. But to go more than the allowable times that business license, the terms they give you, cheaper for me to go for a live entertainment permit.
Okay, but what I'm asking is, you have hours here that allow you to have your business open from
Yes, ma'am.
8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Sunday.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you anticipate? What is your desire or your plan with regard to having live music during that period of time or any other time? But let's start with
Yes, ma'am.
Sunday.
My plan was if I can get the students from the college or the students from the high school, my intent was to have them there either on Saturday or Sunday mornings only, because I didn't want no kids late night.
Well, what time? That's what I'm
8 to
saying.
12, 8 to 2, yes,
So
ma'am.
you anticipate that you could have live entertainment as early as 8 a.m. on Sunday morning?
Yes, ma'am, but I don't think nobody's gonna get up at 8 o'clock for that, no, ma'am.
Well, that's why we're trying to find out if you don't think
Okay,
anybody's
well,
going to get up for that.
I haven't attempted to schedule it, so I would say if I was gonna attempt to schedule it, 10 to 2, 10 to 1, that window, because, you know, that's what I'm saying, it's new to me, so it's not like I'm gonna have a big band going. So I would say if you want hours, I would say 10 to 1.
Okay,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that's on Sunday. What about the other days? What is your plan? I know you haven't put a permit, but I'm sure you would go out there with something in mind.
Yes, ma'am.
So what is your
Saturday-
plan with Saturdays?
Saturday mornings, and then.
What time?
I would say 10 to 2.
10 to 2?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what's your thought now about the times for Thursdays and Fridays, when you're open from 5 to 10?
I would say 5 to 9. Because no matter what, I am closing at 10 because, ma'am, I have to have a life too. I can't be up there at 1 and then trying to go to work at UG at 8. And so 10 o'clock's my bedtime, really.
Right.
So.
Well, I don't think anybody has issue with your hours. It's what you're bringing here. You're proposing live music. You're within very short distance of a long-standing church, and across the street you have residences. So that's why I'm asking these questions. We're not proposing that it be later, but since you have a wide, berth of hours.
But see, that also, when I say I will be able to try to schedule them anytime between 8 to 10, well, I still would have to get with the musicians and get their schedule to fit me in to where they are too. So of course, I'm not gonna have nobody there at 8 o'clock playing jazz at 8 o'clock in the morning. But if they can make it there at 10, because I think over at the Phoenix Breakfast Lounge, they have jazz brunch from 10 to 2.
Yeah, but are you talking about the Phoenix in downtown Kansas City,
Yes, ma'am.
Missouri? Very different environment over there.
I understand, and I'm nowhere near that.
Yeah.
I'm way smaller than that.
Well, not just that, but I'm saying the surrounding environment too. I didn't see any churches within 200 feet.
I understand, ma'am. I was trying to get the example of the brunch hours
Yeah.
to you.
What type of music are you playing now? You're playing jazz?
Jazz, yes, ma'am.
By what method now?
iPad.
Okay, because very nice establishment, very intimate. With space for 18, I'm hoping you're successful, but what is your capacity? You bring more people in. Do you have concerns that you might outgrow where you are, capacity-wise?
Well, my intent was just to start with 18, what I have.
Yeah, well, I would like to see you and the church talk. Somehow that there's been not the opportunity to do that, and I would very much like to see this go back to allow you and the church to talk some more about this, and for you to give thought about the windows of time that you would seek to have musicians there.
Okay.
So that it's not on one Saturday. Maybe some people do get up at 8, but I don't know that that would be conducive for the neighborhood and not really respective of what the church has brought up. That would be my motion, to have this sent back to give you and the church an opportunity to talk more in detail and for you to consider more specific time windows. So when you go to your musicians, you can say, we've got this block. We've got 10 to 2 on Sunday or 11 to 2 on Sunday. So that would be my motion.
Thank you. I think I'd be willing to second the motion, but what I want to make sure of is if we were to send the request for live music back to our planning commission,
Yes, ma'am.
so we can clarify those issues, I'm not looking to impede what you're doing right now. And if you're playing jazz on an iPad, then, and you're operating, then you can do that right now. And you can keep doing that while we sort out your live music issue. Am I correct?
So you're just hitting play on the jazz channel and letting jazz play. You don't have a DJ or anything like that.
No.
You're just playing, yeah. As long as that's all they're doing, then that's fine.
So if that does not stop you from what's currently happening, then I would ask you to respond to
Yes,
that.
ma'am. Well, currently, my cousin, he's a flautist. He comes in and plays. But I, without having a permit or continue to buy it from the business license, because I can only buy 4 for the whole year.
If you, without it, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So we might stop that for a moment.
Yes, ma'am. And that is the live jazz is a draw of most of my customers because my food sales go up.
Sure.
And, you know, because I gotta have food sales, I gotta have income, so.
And I appreciate that, so thank you for that. I just
Yes,
I want you to be able to stay open, keep doing what you're currently doing, and let's sort out the times of let's go ahead and get some clarity around the times. And we're gonna have to do that by sending this back to the Planning Commission, which delays this all a little bit, but it doesn't stop it. So with that, I will second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. And my comments refer only to what was brought here, and that was Mr. Hollinshed's request for live music, which shouldn't be there anyway, but I would encourage everyone in this room, everyone viewing, to go and patronize Mr. Hollinshed's facility, because you have the food, the coffee, and you have the jazz setting now. So we are only here because you've brought this request for live music. So thank you, Commissioner Bynum, for that second.
Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hollinshed, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
With regard to the times that you brought in the flautist, were there any problems? Did anybody have any problems with the flautist?
No, sir. And
inside
actually,
and outside?
No, sir. And actually, I checked the police records, and it hasn't been any calls down at that building for several years. And the only call they had was from me, abandoned vehicle in front of the building.
Right. So there's no complaints that you've heard of
No, sir.
time for somebody playing a flute?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
No.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Vote is 8-1, that motion carries.
Thank you. That takes us to item D1. Rob, you want to give us a presentation on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Patrick Waters did a presentation earlier this evening at the study session related to this ordinance. It comes before you from the Planning Commission, recommended for approval. I don't know if there's any other pertinent facts that you want me to cover given the study session?
No, thank you. I think we've heard what we needed to hear and had a great discussion. Anyone in opposition to this, please come forward. I'm sorry, anybody in the public who would like to speak in support of this, please come forward at this time.
So we don't get in opposition of this ordinance, correct?
Now, we're in opposition to the ordinance, so now you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, Rob, Ken, staff. My name's Pete Peterson, 748 Ann, Kansas City, Kansas. I'm not going to go into a long presentation concerning this. What I would simply like you to do is what you've done already a couple times tonight, is send this back to the Planning Commission. And here's the main reason why. The Planning Commission did not have the information that you all have had when you voted on this in February. So here's the really quick chronology of this. In December, I wrote a letter to the mayor, Doug, and Ken concerning what everybody believed was an ordinance that was still on the books and in effect. I had an 11-page legal opinion from another law firm that thought it was unconstitutional. It turns out that ordinance, as we all know now, was repealed. So inadvertently, so on February 4th, I learned that a new proposed ordinance was going to be in front of the Planning Commission on February 11th. So I sent the same 11-page letter opinion of the attorneys to every Planning Commission member who probably had a tough time trying to digest that opinion within the week's time. Certainly, they did not have the second opinion that was given by the law firm. I appeared at the February 11th Planning Commission meeting. However, I sent the proposed ordinance, which I just received on February 8th, to the attorneys that were hired to write the opinion for a second opinion. It took them about a week to do that, and they rendered their opinion on February 18th. So consequently, the Planning Commission did not have the benefit of that second opinion. So I would like, and on February 28th, we were in front of you and you continued it to tonight. So what I would like to do procedurally is correct all that and let the Planning Commission have the benefit of the second opinion that they did not have on February 11th when they voted.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present in opposition who would like to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. The petitioner, any final comments, Rob?
I think that we settled all of the study session.
All right, thank you. So we have, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to send this back to planning and zoning. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
No.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 8-1. That motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have two items under the Planning and Zoning non-consent agenda. Item number 1 is change of zone application number 3181, Christopher T. Phillips, requesting a change of zone from R1 Single Family District to AG Agricultural District for an accessory building at 3201 Pomeroy Drive. The Planning Commission voted 6-1 to approve. Staff, please, opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one negative vote was expressed because the applicant wasn't able to attend at that meeting. We've asked the applicant to be here tonight so he could discuss his case with you.
All right, I'd ask the applicant to come forward and present his case.
Sorry about missing that first meeting. I didn't know I was supposed to be here. But,
Please state your name and address.
my name is Chris Phillips. The address is 3201 Pomeroy Drive. I bought this piece of land. It's 10.6 acres. I actually purchased it just for me and my family to go out there and spend some time together. I plan on building a barn and getting a couple animals and stuff, just so me and my 4 boys can go out there and play in the woods, pretty much.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone present would like to speak in favor? Seeing none. Anyone present in opposition? Seeing none. Commissioners?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Commissioner Bynum?
Thank you. This is my neighborhood and my neighborhood group. And while they asked me about it, nobody has any issues. So I just wanted my fellow commissioners to know and understand, nobody in my immediate neighborhood has any issues with what you're trying to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Next, we have special use permit application SP-2019-3, Blakeland Maroney with Maroney Motors LLC for automotive sales at 3131 Merriam Lane. The Planning Commission voted 5-2 to deny. I'd ask staff to make some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant has had a difficult time providing the information needed for the Planning Commission and the staff to make a favorable recommendation. The staff recommendation at Planning Commission was actually to hold this over to give him one more chance to provide the adequate information so we could understand exactly what the application was and what potential other actions such as variances might be needed for the parking. But given the history with the case, the Planning Commission voted, as you noted, to deny the case.
Thank you. I'd ask the applicant to come forward to present the application. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Blakeland Maroney, 8424 Tomahawk Road, Overland Park, Kansas, 66207. As Rob stated, the recommendation discussed by staff and I was to hold this over for more time for me to meet with a engineer or architect to get the proper plans and variances and needed materials. There was miscommunication. A lot of it on my fault is kind of why I think the commission voted for denial, but since then, Rob and I have spoke again, and he thinks having some more time to meet with engineering or architect would be sufficient. I forget if he said 60 or 90 days, but whatever's recommended should be sufficient for me getting in touch with the proper people.
Thank you. Anyone else present who would like to speak in support? Seeing none, anyone present in opposition? Seeing none,
Mr. Mayor, so this might be a bit unusual, but I think he needs to have an engineer prepare plans before we go back to Planning Commission so that we actually know what I can tell the Planning Commission what it is they would be voting on. So I think it would be appropriate you think you can do it for the second week of May or second week of June? Okay, let's refer this back to the June Planning Commission meeting, June 2019.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to refer back till the June 2nd, you said? June 2nd?
It's the June Planning Commission, I'm not sure of the exact
Okay,
date.
June Planning Commission meeting.
thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Commissioner McKiernan?
You're going to keep hearing this from me until I no longer see this on this agenda. We have a tax status report that comes at the end of every Planning Commission agenda, and we are prevented by state statute from using non-payment of taxes as a deciding factor in any case that comes before us, and we did not tonight. But I still find it just appalling that folks who come before the Planning Commission asking Planning Commission to work on their behalf have not supported the work of that Planning Commission by not paying their taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the planning and zoning portion of tonight's meeting. We'll now move to the regular portion of our agenda. Does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on the regular consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the regular consent agenda will be voted on by one vote, and I have two items that I'd like to pull just for informational purposes, items 3 and 7. Any others? Seeing none, I entertain a motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That takes us to the first set-aside item, item number 3, amendments to the administrative penalty process. I'd ask Administrator Bach to highlight what this action involves.
Mayor, I have Greg talking with our Neighborhood Resource Center here this evening, and while he's available, I'm just going to go ahead and let him do a quick highlight of what's going on with this, and we would recommend approval. Greg?
Thank you, Doug, Mayor, Commission. This amendment to our ordinances is kind of twofold. One, we've been struggling with trying to find a way to penalize those that continue to violate ordinances within our community, and a lot of those continue to go on, and they just don't heed to what we're trying to do to clean up our community. So the first part of this is, instead of developing a definition of a habitual violator, we decided, because, let's go back, that would create an additional ordinance that requires additional hearings, additional legal action, and hearings, and just complicates the system. So we got to looking at that. We already had the administrative citation in play. We thought, well, if we're up to 3 steps where we penalize them to a certain point, so if somebody's going beyond 3 steps, we need to continue to raise that, because at that point, there technically could be somebody that habitually keeps violating that ordinance over a period of time. So the first step, the first item of this is to add additional steps to continue to raise and elevate that as individuals in our community, including corporations and LLCs and people trying to hide behind contract for deeds, to raise that so we can penalize more in an effort to try to get the community cleaned up. The second portion of this is that we also have had other departments within the unified government that has taken an interest in this and want to start using this. Once again, the big advantage of this and the biggest impact we've had is if we have an ownership of a property under an LLC or a corporation, it's hard to hold those individuals accountable. We can't really, if you can serve the company for municipal court, but if they don't appear, you really don't have anybody to issue a bench warrant for, and holding them accountable is difficult. So in this process, there's still a due process. They can have a request a hearing if they feel like we're doing anything inappropriate, but ultimately we can place the cost of this fine, this administrative fine, onto the property. So there's several benefits with it. So rehashing that, we're trying to increase the fine to try to handle the issues we've got with habitual violators, and we're also trying to expand it to cover Chapter 3, 15, 17, 27, and 32, which includes air pollution, fire prevention, health and sanitation, planning and zoning, and streets and sidewalks.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner McKiernan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We cover this in the standing committee, but I just want to make sure that we cover this again here. Just to be clear, if anyone who receives a notice of violation from your department honestly engages with your department, they will not be subject to this administrative process, correct?
That's correct, and if they are subject to it and they honestly engage after that, then they won't be assessed anymore after that, as long as they continue to work with us.
Thank you very much. With that, Mr. Mayor, I move for approval as submitted.
Thank you. Motion and a second?
And
Yep.
a comment.
Commissioner Murguia?
So I just have a question, because I'm curious. Once we get to the point where the person that is in violation is going to court and they don't show up and a warrant is issued for them, do we actively act on that warrant? Do we arrest that person?
They don't actively go pursuing that person until it gets to, I don't know the level of having the amount of bench warrants out. If they get pulled over for a traffic stop or something along that line, when it's usually initially set at like $500, there's no active search for that person. It has to get up, I believe, don't quote me, but about $3,000 before we would really actively pursue that person. But once again, if they're pulled on our traffic stop or other misdemeanor violation or anything, then the officer would address that if there's an active bench warrant.
So just real quickly, if you can't find them, the property remains in terrible shape, what happens? Do we just live with it? The community does? Commissioner,
are you saying with the use of administrative citation?
Yes, with the use of administrative citation, if they don't show up to court, you've gone through all the processes, they're not cooperative, a warrant is issued for their arrest, the property remains in deplorable condition, is the community expected to continue to live with the condition of that property?
No, but it does take time. Now, let me clarify. The administrative citation does not include municipal court. The administrative citation has its own hearing process. It's mainly administrative in nature. We have an independent hearing officer that hears the cases if somebody wants to appeal that penalty or our decision that it's a violation. But the thing that this does for, if we can't get them into court, going the municipal court process, then pretty much it sits there because we're not able to put any penalty on that individual or that corporation. Through this process, we can impose the fine if they don't work with us. We can continue to elevate that fine, and then eventually, if they don't pay these fines or do anything with the property, then we will be able to foreclose up on that property and get control.
And how long is that process?
Well, right now, I mean, it goes on the tax roll. We can, if the property's vacant within a year, we can foreclose up on it. We also can foreclose, and Ken, I would ask you to correct me if I'm wrong, but since this is a fine and a special we're putting on, I believe we can foreclose in a year under certain conditions, but otherwise we rely on the 3-year period of delinquency.
Delinquency for the fine, not property tax delinquency.
Well, the fine eventually becomes a special, which is added to the tax roll.
But even if they pay their taxes, if they don't clean up the mess, what happens? Who cleans up the mess?
We will do an abatement, we'll clean up the mess, and we'll also put that on as a special.
Okay.
If they don't pay the bill when it's sent to them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tarkin. Next set-aside item, number 7, Adopt a Spot Program. Mr. Bach, please introduce staff for presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. We have an exciting new program that's been brought forward by staff. It's somewhat similar, I'd say, to what you see out there on the highway programs, but we've made ours much more local. I have Dave Reno with our Public Works Department, and he does our public relations area for us now. And with that, I'm going to let Dave go ahead and present this.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Dave Reno with Public Works, but I'm really here on behalf of a lot of staff and numerous departments working under the banner of SOAR. We're going to talk about a program this evening that everybody's put a lot of thought and time and energy into. It's a program that other cities have, but ours has a little bit of a twist. And of course, it's Adopt a Spot WICO. So, like other cities who do Adopt a Street programs or Adopt a Spot or Adopt a Park programs, we thought, well, why don't we do 3 different things? So we went with parks, streets, or portions of streets, and land bank properties. So in total, we've got 34 parks that are adoptable, 15 portions of street that are adoptable, and 66 spots that are adoptable. Who can adopt a spot? It's always a big question. Well, anybody can adopt a spot. This program is really geared towards folks who are civic-minded, have an interest in reducing litter or cleaning up their neighborhood by removing weeds and things like that from sidewalks. So it's open to everybody, whether you're an individual or you're with a neighborhood association, a homeowners association, and it's pretty easy to get involved. So all you have to do is pick your spot. Then you have to fill out some paperwork because legal told us we needed to have paperwork. And after that, you get started. So let's go over some of the important things. Anybody can be a sponsor. Sponsors have to choose an available location. We have selected, kind of pre-selected a lot of locations, but if you or someone you know says, hey, can this other location become available, I'm sure that we can accommodate that. We just picked ones we thought people might be interested in. It is first come, first served. The one catch here is that no one under the age of 14, well, 14 and younger, can work cleanups on portions of adoptable streets. We just thought it's probably not a good idea to have young folks out picking up trash on the side of State Avenue. So for safety purposes, they're going to be limited to parks and land bank properties. So to keep your adopted spot, you have to perform at least 3 cleanups during a 2-year period. I think that's really easy to do. I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with that. Now, in return for cleaning up Wyandotte County and being an awesome citizen, an awesome resident, awesome business, Public Works is going to get you some safety equipment, trash bags, so you don't have to pay for any of that. We're also going to take care of all those trash bags after you're finished with the cleanup, so you don't have to worry about that. But you also get a really cool Adopt a Spot sign with your organization on it. So Here's kind of a preview of what that sign looks like. It's a two-part sign. The first one is just the branding for Adopt a Spot. And then once you complete your cleanups, whatever your location is, Huron Park, adopted by, and then your organization name. As long as you continue to perform those cleanups, that sign belongs to you as far as I'm concerned. As a thanks for taking part in the community and helping us clean everything up and make Wyandotte County an even better place to live, work, and play.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Barros.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question. Is there a criteria for denial of an organization to adopt a spot?
No, there isn't. The only way we would take a spot away is if an organization failed to perform the required number of cleanups.
Commissioner McKiernan?
I think this is a wonderful idea. I love this. And what I'm about to say doesn't come with a sign or any special recognition, but I just want to remind everybody, and this kind of piggybacks on Mr. Talkin's presentation, we can all adopt a spot, and that's the spot where we are every day. So if we all adopt those spots right off the bat, that automatically is going to make the city a lot cleaner. So.
And I'm going to start with my desk.
Okay.
I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes the portion of our regular meeting. We are adjourned in that capacity. Now we are back to order
We
as
do
the
have
Land
an
Bank
item
Board
for
of
the administrator's agenda.
Administrator's agenda. I almost forgot you, Doug. Thank you, Bridget.
Mayor, under the administrator's agenda, we have a TDD that was established many years ago around NFM and Cabela's. That TDD is paid off in advance. I will let Debbie Johncher with Finance give the details on that, as we're recommending to go ahead and close this TDD. Debbie?
Good evening. Just some information on the TDD. The Nebraska Furniture Mart Cabela's TDD was established, the district was created in 2005 and it established a 0.1% sales tax for the district. In 2006, we issued sales tax revenue bonds in the amount of about $2.4 million. The bonds were scheduled to mature in December of 2027. They have paid off as of December 2018, so 9 years ahead of schedule. So if we're asking for approval of the ordinance to terminate the district and the sales tax in 2019.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Aye. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're adjourned. Now we are back in order as the Land Bank Board of Trustees. Any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on the Land Bank consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the consent agenda will be voted on by one vote.
Move to approve all as submitted.
And a roll call, please.
Roll call, Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Thank you all.